Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Frankie Corrado, Jamie Noodles, McLennan. Got Mike Johnson coming up. Johnny's already over in Sweden, living that Swedish lifestyle. The World Juniors played earlier today, beat up on Switzerland, but Celebrini could be in some trouble.
Yeah, international rules, that's going to get a couple of games.
Yeah, hit from behind, I think they called, right? Or boarding, I guess, but he could be in trouble. And
couple games.
Yeah, but, you know, they'll survive without him in terms of the group stage.
Yeah.
But
it wasn't a good hit.
No,
like
it's pretty ugly.
Like the kid had his back towards him and he buries him head first in the boards.
That's a bad hit.
It's not a good hit.
No.
Well, and then you factor in that it's double IHF rules, and they're more strict when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was a bad hit. Like, there's no defending it. I mean, it's a timely play. Things happen quickly. I don't think it was intentional. He wasn't trying to, destroy the guy. But you hit a guy in the numbers, head first in the boards, you're going to pay the price. Especially, you're right, Frankie. Like, the international rules are a lot more. They're strict. They don't mess around. And it'll be interesting to see what he gets for the penalty. We'll call it.
Yeah, you got to own it. And what sucks is it's an exhibition game, right?
Yeah,
like you're just out there.
game.
Yeah, you're trying to get your feet wet. You're playing in Europe. You're trying to get the dimensions of the buildings, together, and the lighting, everything that comes with playing in Europe.
Those international rinks, like my first time stepping on an ice surface in Sweden, I swear to God, I thought I was on a football field. After being in a North American rink for so long, never had any going over to Europe experience. You get over there, you're like, why is there so much room? This thing is massive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You get lost out there.
I think it's so goofy. I don't like the bigger rink. I've heard the arguments for why it should come over here. I couldn't disagree more.
I agree with you 100%, Hayes. It's the North American size ice is
perfect.
So far beyond better.
I hated it as a goalie too, but what they do over there is that a lot of those guys just basically play inside the dots anyway. So it's like from a goaltender and defensive standpoint, Frankie, I don't know how you did it, but like you would leave the guy out there. You want to cycle around and do whatever, like go ahead. Yeah. You're so far away from the net. That's why I noticed when I played overseas is as a goaltender, they try to pass the puck into the net because you're not shooting from that far out. You're not going to score on the goalies. So, I even when I played in England during the lockout, we only had 4 D-men. So the D-men would play 2-minute shifts. They would conserve energy.
You only had 4 defensemen on your team.
4 defensemen on the team. Like 4 defensemen that played. I think we had a young kid, like a 15-year-old that never played, that sat there with a birdcage on.
Right.
But we played 4D, and they would just interchange, and they would play 2-minute shifts, maybe sometimes 2.5-minute shifts, and they could serve energy. So a guy would be zipping around on the outside, and they'd just leave him out there.
Yeah,
I would struggle sometimes. I'd be like, get him. I'd be screaming. And one time the captain's like, dude, we just leave him out there. Wait till he comes to the dots and then we'll deal with him. I'm like, I never even thought of it that way.
Exactly.
It's all about pressure. You got to get on it. And over there, it's like, no, let them pass the puck and do whatever they want at the perimeter. They're not harming us. So it was just a weird adjustment. I remember that was during the NHL lockout. I went over there to England for a couple months, and it was a weird adjustment.
Yeah, it's slower. It allows for the defense to just say, yeah, go ahead. Buzz around if you want. It's empty calorie stuff. Anyway, Canada is, gearing towards the World Juniors over there. Mike Johnson will join us here in a few moments. And Johnny, I'm sure, was well aware of what was happening in Buffalo last night. And the Leafs, they got skunked, man. 9-3. Even just saying that is crazy. 9 goals they gave up last night to Buffalo that just torched them last night.
And Hayes, in that building, it goes from the fans chanting "Fire Donnie" to "Fire Don Granato" to "We want 8, we want 9, we want 10," and then the cherry on top is that they are playing Hall & Oates at the end of the game. The ultimate troll job.
Right.
I'm not sure if you caught that.
I didn't catch that at
but
all.
Little do they know, it's no longer the goal song up here, right? You got to update. You got to find a new goal song. The Leafs don't have to be offended by that.
Well, I mean, Buffalo had lost to Columbus. What was it? 9-4.
9-4.
Yeah. So that's 2 9-packs they were involved in basically back-to-back games. There's been some ugly scores throughout the league this year. I'm trying to remember, like, is 9
San Jose,
been the highest?
2 10 spots. 2 10 spots
That's
in
right,
San Jose.
back-to-back. San Jose, right at the start of the year, they gave up.
Remember, Edmonton was giving up 8 a night. San Jose gave up back-to-back 10 spots.
That's right. Edmonton lost
There's
8-2 their opener or whatever it was,
and
San Jose with a couple 10 spots. Like, been some weird. I just think the league was kind of upside down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was watching some of that Edmonton game yesterday. They were down 3-2. You blinked, it was 6-3.
Right.
And the goaltender, that Vanacek, that McDavid's goal, you go back and look at it, he's facing the wrong way in the net. I don't know how you can do that. I text Ray, because Ray was calling the game. I said, how did you even call it? Because the goalie was facing into the net, and McDavid just shot it in the open net. It was crazy. It was just, there were some weird things happening in the league last night.
And a lot of it driven by bad goaltending. I mean, if you're going to have 9 hung on you, the goalies are awful. You know, and that's ultimately what is at stake here for the Maple Leafs with Ilya Samsonov, and we'll see what Johnny's plan is. Everyone's got a different idea of what can happen, but I think for most people, there's a concession. You can't play them anytime soon, and like they play tomorrow night in Columbus, then they're off for 4 days, then they play Ottawa, I believe, at home, and that's another scenario where like they've got San Jose coming up a couple of times, they got Columbus a couple of times. This should be a part of the schedule where the Leafs lean in and keep banking points and dominate and rack up points and just make your life easier. Because if you're going to run into a goaltending issue, you're lucky that you've already banked 38 points. Because you could be like Edmonton, you could be like Jersey or like Carolina, where you had such a slow start because the goaltending's been bad since night 1 that it's so difficult to dig yourself out of it. And the Leafs are pretty fortunate that they've banked so many points, that if there is kind of a dark period forthcoming here in terms of the goaltending situation, maybe they can weather the storm. Or even once they get out of it, hopefully sooner rather than later, they're still their head is still above water.
And they got to dig out with the games they have in hand, because you're right. Like Carolina had a slow start. Mm-hmm. The Leafs have 3 games in hand in them, but Carolina has 38 points.
Yeah,
it's the games in hand that these are the ones you have to win, because it's crowded. It's chunked up a lot more than we think if you start looking at it.
Absolutely.
For the actual points in the bank. But there is games in hand that they have to win. They got games in hand on Tampa, but Tampa's got, I think, 1 point behind them, but they've got 4 games in hand on them. Mm-hmm. Same thing, Florida, 2 games in hand, but they're tied with points. Carolina on the other side, not that it matters, but it's, there's a lot of teams that are chunked up. Washington had a dreadful start. They've got 38 points.
Yeah, they're starting to put it together. They got another one last night in overtime. They won 3 in a row.
Ovi finally scored, too. Ovi scored because Merlikins wanted to beat up Tom Wilson, which was never going to happen, ever.
No, and even that, it was a short side. He got it off. He got some mustard on it, but still, Ovi gets off the schneid last night. All right, here's Mike Johnson, our TSN hockey analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. How's that Swedish lifestyle treating you, Johnny?
It's good. It's rather wintry over here, though. I thought it was going to be sort of like Toronto, but it's been snowy and blustery, so it's a little dose of winter before Christmas. But Noodles makes a good point, because you look at the Eastern Conference, 3rd to 9th all have between 39 and 37 points. 2 points separate 3rd to 9th. So, yes, the Leafs by point percentage look like they're in good shape, but games in hand are only valuable if they win them. So there is a little bit of pressure to kind of be consistent, win those points, stay above the pack, and make life a little less stressful as you go forward.
Yeah, it was something last night, Johnny. I know you're over there.
It was crazy. No, I watched it.
Everyone wants to have an answer on what to do with Samsonov. Everyone's got a different opinion. How would you answer that question? If Sheldon Keefe called you up and said, "Hey, what do you think we do here?" How would you answer that?
So, I mean, I think my first thought going through it was you kind of feel for him personally. Mm-hmm. He's struggling so bad in a position where it's so obvious. Like, if I go 12 games without scoring and I make bad plays with the puck and I turn pucks over, you would notice, but you wouldn't really notice. When a goaltender gets in that same kind of rut, it's so obvious, and he is in one, and he's gone from such a high level to such a low level so quickly, seemingly, in the start of a season overnight. You just feel for a guy who's struggling to find it. He wants to. He just doesn't know what to do. What would I tell Sheldon Keefe to do? Well, I'd say look at your schedule and you find as many ways to not play him as possible right now. Right? So as many starts as you can get Martin Jones in, I guess everything but back-to-backs, I think you lean in that direction. The next question is, who do we have that's next? Like, who else is, if we wanted to start a different goaltender, besides Samsonov in a game he has to go in, who's that? And then what is the, how would that work? Could you just call Hill to be up for a day and have him play on a game and then send him back down if that's the guy? Would you have to send Samsonov down? Like, I would need to have that conversation. And if there's other options, given the way it's going right now, you'd have to consider that as another option. Even if it's just on a one-off, call a guy up, play him, then send him back down and have Samsonov back up if that's what you have to do. Because I know he said it before, like we have to get him back involved. We need him back on the team. We got to get him back on track. It feels like his game needs some rehabilitation that can't happen at the NHL level. Because if it could, it probably already would.
So, Johnny, with that being the case, you're obviously saying that Martin Jones is going to have to start basically every game unless, something comes up and you feel like you got to put a different goaltender in net. Is that slightly concerning that you're going to have to go to Jones here every game while Wall is still quite a ways away from returning?
Yeah, it's very concerning, Frankie. Martin Jones has been fantastic since he's come up in the games that he's played. He's had a very good career. There's a reason that he's not in the NHL to start the season. There's a reason why he cleared waivers, that he was the third goalie to sign in Toronto, that he took that option. There's a reason. And, the last few seasons he's been just okay. Even though he had a lot of wins last year in Seattle, he didn't play great. They just scored a ton. So, of course, I'm very concerned because sooner or later he will even off and you'll get probably a more realistic version of him, which is not the guy he's shown the first week, 10 days that he's played. And then it's a whole other set of problems. Like, you can't trust Jones. Like, then where do you go? But for now, he is the guy you can trust. And it's not maybe because his ceiling is so high. You can trust him because his floor isn't so low. And Toronto might be a good enough team, not last night, but certainly a good enough team that even with, okay goaltending or average goaltending or slightly worse than average goaltending, they might be able to win games with that because they're supposed to be a good enough team to do so.
Johnny, where are you at? Let's throw last night out the window because it was just one of those games for everybody. Where are you at with this group? Let's take the goaltending out because we know we just laid it out. Where are you at with that defensive core? Have you been pleasantly surprised? Do you think they've been average? Obviously I think they need to add. Liljegren comes back, but where are you at with them as a full group?
Well, they've been okay. They've been okay, and it was never supposed to be the strength of the team, even when everyone was healthy, let alone when everyone was injured. As an injured, depleted core, when you take Liljegren, Giordano, and Klingberg, who was supposed to be a big part of this, out of it, to think that they hung in and played the way they did and won as many games as they did with Benoit and Lagesson and Timmins playing major minutes, I give them credit because those guys aren't supposed to be able to do that. I think Morgan Rielly has had an incredible season. I think underrated, excellent. And McCabe, I think, has gotten a lot better. But the defense core has been okay, Noodles. I think you sort of need to reserve judgment until they spend that money. Like, what are they going to do? Like, they need to replace the guy that they were hoping Klingberg was going to be. Second pair, right side defender. Now, they'd probably rather a more defensive, more physical kind of guy. But when they get that, then you kind of see how they stack up. But they've been fine, especially given their injuries. I almost really think it's been the forward group that has been less consistent throughout the whole season. Even though the Big Four have got a ton of points, they've been less consistent throughout the whole season. That has caused Toronto to not look as good at times.
Yeah, well, and factoring in, their role in better defensive play, I think the Marner turnover on the third goal is inexcusable. It can't happen. The fifth goal, the Thompson goal, that's, I think, Skinner, Willie, stick checks, Matthews, incredibly soft in the neutral zone. Like, that kind of stuff can't happen. Like, those guys, you can't, yes, the goal can't go in. Sure, it's not ideal if you've got Benoit and Timmins and Lagesson or whatever trying to stop high-end guys, but like William Nylander can win that battle, and Matthews can use his body. And if it's just too easy for the opposition to carve through you, that's going to put that much more pressure on a defense that needs some help.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, listen, no one's perfect. I don't care. Patrice Bergeron would lose a battle. Patrice Bergeron would lose a check, right? Like, nobody's perfect, but you can't have it frequently, and you can't have the same guys doing it, and you can't have it in high leverage points of the game. And those guys have to be leading the way in being diligent and setting the tone. Remember last year when they came home from the California trip at the end of October and they were really scuffling, they had some injuries, and all of a sudden they locked it in and became a pretty good defensive team, not just in goals against, but in chances against and shots against and all those other things that would indicate good defensive play. Like, they can do it. And you're right. I think there's been moments of this year where they haven't done it as well as they can. It's asking a lot. We need Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander to score a point or two a game and be locked in defensively every single night. Like, that's asking a lot, but that's where the Leafs are right now.
Johnny, when you take a look at the schedule coming up, there's going to be some games against some teams that are well below the Leafs' weight class, and there's going to be some good teams in there. Like the LA Kings are going to be coming up at some point. Like, what kind of means more to you in a sense that, like, the Leafs can really step up their game when they play a really good team? They have that kind of awareness, or the fact that they play against the Sabres or they play against the Blue Jackets, and it's like, you're looking for guys. They don't have it that night, and it's, I don't know, it seems like it happens more often than not against those kinds of teams.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, evaluating the Leafs against good teams, we've seen that for a long time. They play really well against the good teams, and they can elevate their game. And I'm not worried about what the Leafs' best game looks like. I think it's going to be competitive with any team in the league. I think right now, given what they're going through, especially in net, Frankie, what I care about is let's beat the teams we're supposed to beat. Even if we're shorthanded in net, even if we have some injuries here and there, we're good enough. We play kind of a mature, responsible, professional game. We'll win our fair share of those games, and we'll keep our spot in the standings because that's how good we are. So to me, right now, it's not about, like, I'd rather beat Columbus and Buffalo and Montreal, and if we happen to lose to LA because we didn't play great that game or they just outbeat us, that's okay. That doesn't mean that the Leafs can't get there. I want the points, and I want that kind of professionalism of taking care of the teams you're supposed to take care of so that you're not in the cluster of teams. Like, push up to Boston. Don't hang with the Islanders in Washington and Florida. Like, push up to be 1, 2, 3, chasing a top spot, not fighting to make sure you're not 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, I think it's about them being more proactive, and we were talking about this with Ralphie, Jimmy Ralph. I think it was earlier this week, I guess it was, and asking him about certain situations the Leafs find themselves in. And he effectively was saying, like, he'll really change his opinion on this team when they become proactive in different areas. And we're talking about team toughness, where, yes, they'll fight after a big hit. But how about you throw the big hit, or you throw the fight, or you decide to fight, or you go in and steamroll a team. You come off a loss, and it's like, now we're going to show you what we're made of. Like, it's this attitude, this mentality that it still seems like it's them trying to prove. Like, if you want to fight, we'll fight, as opposed to, we're just going to fight. If you want to, you can join us. And that applies in many different areas of the game. But I think that is something that needs to be proven here, that especially when you're talking about these lesser teams. It's like they have this unwarranted arrogance or something. It's Columbus, Buffalo. That's why I didn't like the attitude of Keefe yesterday playing Samsonov, and his attitude was, well, he's got to play. Like, okay, if I'm Buffalo, I'm like, really? You think we're a minor league team? Like, this is a trial and error for your goalie who can't stop anything? Watch what happens. And I think it's just a horrible attitude to have.
Well, I mean, I think he's telling the truth, though. He's got to play. So, whoever you play...
He didn't have to play last night. You don't have to. It's his choice.
No, I understand, but I think they are still of the mind they're trying to salvage his season. And maybe that's too far gone, and maybe that's the mistake. But I think they genuinely are trying to figure out a way to get him back on track, which means he's got to play a game, and you got to get him in, I guess, the more winnable games without saying we're doing that. So you're not playing him against the Rangers, you're playing him against the Sabres. Like, that makes sense. You don't need to say it out loud, but yeah, if you're trying to get a goalie's confidence up, Noodles, tell me, is it better to play the Rangers or better to play the Sabres? I mean, it's probably better to play the Sabres. So
I wonder with this team if it's better to do the opposite, though.
Yeah,
because of their reputation.
Given their history.
Exactly.
Given their history.
Like, the other guys, I can't guarantee they're going to show up against Buffalo. So we might actually be screwing you here, because the other guys might mail it in because it's Buffalo.
The thing is, though, Columbus, you start him against Columbus, like those goals, some of these goals that are going in, Johnny, it doesn't matter who you're playing. Like, these are, he's in his own head. Like, the Greenway goal yesterday, I was talking about it last hour. Like, we watch a lot of hockey. That's tough to
never
repeat.
Goes in.
No.
I know.
Like, it just doesn't go in. The Thompson
No.
goal, like that. Like forget about like, oh, he whiffed it. It's a it's a one-off. Oops, it's the occasion. Like those just literally don't go in. Noodles, you go a whole year without letting a shot like that in. And he lets it in multiple once in a game. It's vexing. It's perplexing. Like, what the hell is that?
Yeah,
because it's hard to understand.
That's what kind of floored me, is because that's where I knew he was in a bad spot, because those are mental errors as far as just tracking the puck, being in position, reacting to what's coming towards you. And then you could tell as the game went on, he got into his own head, and you're overthinking, you're not reacting. Like, it doesn't matter right now if you're trying to salvage him. It doesn't matter who you're playing, because you can't play, like Hayes said last hour, you can't be like the 95 Devils and give up 12 shots. I think, didn't Chris Osgood have a crazy shutout against the Leafs a million years ago? It wasn't 7 shots, or
well, that was Marty. It was Marty.
Brodeur had
it was a playoff game. I think they only had.
It was a deciding game. It was Game 6 of a playoff.
Yeah,
like 9 shots.
9 shots.
Like you're not going to have that.
No.
Like so you're going to have to. He's going to have to find a way. The only way I could see him getting back into a game in the next week or so, maybe 2 weeks, is if he comes in relief, where it's an off night for Jones, and you come in and you're playing with house money. The pressure's not on you to slam the door. You're losing 4-0 halfway through the game or something like that, where I don't see him starting in the next couple of weeks. They've got to find a way to get him right between the ears, and then either give him an opportunity, or he's got to maybe play a game with the Marlies. I don't know what they decide there.
That's, to me, because now you can get sent on a conditioning stint, but you have to agree to your conditioning stint. You can't they just can't, right? I don't think, all right.
Yep.
Like,
I've been on
right?
2, Johnny, and my experience was Lou saying, "Hey, we're sending you on a conditioning stint. You got it?" Yes, Lou,
right.
I got it.
Yeah.
But you get paid your NHL salary. That was the thing, Frankie.
Well, I will shake your hand on that, Lou.
Yeah. Respectfully, it might be different with Sammy, given where, and so like. Yeah. Would he agree to that? Or would they say, well, if you're not going to agree, then we're going to put you on waivers and you're going to go, which he has no say in. But, like, again, the whole thing is under the idea of you're massaging a fragile psyche of confidence. And so, I'm with you. Like, I think it'd be great if he went to the Marlies, played 5 games, and just, like, got out of it, got out of his own head, got out of that dressing room, got out of the media, and just... Now, if it doesn't go well, it's Jack Campbell being like, oh, my God, what do we do now? But I don't know how he finds it. I mean, it would be incredibly challenging to find it at the NHL level and practice. And he acknowledges very candidly he's working hard and he's trying his best. He just, that was a guy who looked so lost. It's hard to imagine him getting it back at the NHL level without getting some games in elsewhere. So, I don't know, like, Doodles, you're the goalie coach. You're Curtis Sand. Like, what would you say, Marlies listen, Sammy, go to the Marlies for 10 days. You'll play 2 weekends. You'll play 4 games. I'll be down there with you. Everyone else will leave you alone. Like, we got, get you some reps and stop the puck and you'll be great. You'll be right back up. Like, would that be something that you would think would be a good idea?
I think it would be. I'm looking at and just using the Edmonton Jack Campbell situation. Now, they waived him. They sent him down. Mm-hmm. My understanding is that, they're trying to rebuild him a little bit.
They want to bring him back up.
And they do, but he hasn't found his game yet consistently. But my understanding is the Oilers at some point, if they do bring him up, they're going to not hide him, because you're never hiding anybody, but he's going to get a road start somewhere. Like, it's going to be they're on a 4-game road trip and they're going to slide him in a start somewhere. Bring him in, start him, send him back if you have to. Like, you can't do the thing that I've been struggling with since I'm thinking about this morning. You can't do that in Toronto. Like, every game, like, you can't.
Nothing's quiet.
Nothing's quiet. You're not going to hide him. Even if you start him, hey, we're going into Columbus. We're going to start him. Nice quiet start. It's not a quiet start. Everyone's watching. So it's that's the thing that I'm struggling with, because you're right. I think I can, if you can get him to the Marlies or get him to agree to go and play a couple games, because I think the Marlies play the 26th and 27th. I was
always on Boxing Day. Always Boxing Day.
But roster freeze, guys, you can't send them anywhere.
Right. So you can't get them
down
now.
So after the 27th.
But
you can't send them.
If you could get them for a pocket of games, so just go, hey, go down for a weekend. They're playing 3-3 or whatever. You're going to play 2 of the 3. Go in and just go relax and play some games. But
That's
again,
great,
we'll all
Noodles.
be watching.
Well, it's great until he pulls an Alec Manoah and gets shelled. Right, in the Florida Complex League. And then it's like, man, they had to pull him.
That?
Yeah, exactly.
Single A ball, 11 runs after 2 innings. Yeah,
right.
If you have the equivalent, he gets lit up for 7 against 2 Wilkes-Barre Scranton. You're like, well, where do we go from here?
Then you're screwed.
But you know what, though, Hayes? You might be screwed either way.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you don't do something, you just sort of try to ride it out, you might be left with a goaltender that you can't trust, and his game deteriorates to the point where he can't play, and you're just trying to bide what. Like, when's Joseph Wall? They're saying maybe February? Is it like 6 more weeks?
Mm-hmm.
It's a long time.
Yeah, it's trouble.
And
it's
like
trouble.
Martin Jones, nice story, but Martin Jones is, you know.
You don't want to ride that wave for 6 weeks. I mean,
well put.
You're asking a lot. Give us an update, Johnny. What did you see out of Canada today? How are we feeling going into the tournament?
You know, it's a pre-comp game, so they're working through rust. A lot of these kids haven't played since early December, so they're. Quite frankly, they looked a little bit out of shape, like game shape, trying to get up to the pace of the game. I thought Macklin Celebrini, who will probably kind of be the star of the team, he's really good, guys. He's going to be the first overall pick likely in 24. He got kicked out of the game for boarding, though. He might even get suspended for tomorrow's game against the States, or maybe even the first game of the tournament, which would be a disaster, but he looks really good. They don't have, like, super superstar players. They got a whole bunch of really good ones. I think the strength will be in the group as opposed to the individuals right now. But yeah, Celebrini looks really good. Even like, Matthew Poitras, who came down late, he was still trying to find his game. Tomorrow will be a better test. Switzerland 6-3 was comfortable, was obvious. Tomorrow they're playing the Americans, who are probably the best team here, probably the favorite. We'll get a better sense of exactly where everyone sits after tomorrow's game.
Okay. All right, Johnny. Well, enjoy yourself over there. Say hi to Gord and the crew, and have a great Christmas, New Year. We'll do it again soon. Thank you, buddy.
All right, boys. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to all you guys, and hope you guys enjoy your holidays, and we'll talk next week.
You got it. There he is, Mike Johnson, our TSN hockey analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota, and check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. Yeah, World Juniors beginning Boxing Day on TSN.
Dude, that conditioning stint thing is interesting. Like, I did 2 of them. So both years I was with the Leafs, I went on a conditioning stint early in the year. I think November or October I did one. My second year I did one right in the new year. And they had it planned out so that I was going to play 7 games in 14 days, because you could go down for 14 days on a conditioning stint. Both times I played 7 games. So it was a 3-3 and then a 4-pack the next week. So it was a grind. But the issue with that was, that the 14-day expiration date is there. So you still feel like all the eyes are on you. There's still all the pressure of like, I got to find it in 2 weeks because I'm going back up. I almost feel like when I cleared waivers and went down and that was it, I felt way more free. And I just felt like I could play. It wasn't like everyone was watching every shift and the report was going back to Babs or Lou. Like, I feel like Samsonov might be better off just going, like, clearing waivers and going down and saying, we're going to leave you here for however long it takes. Mm-hmm. There's no set time for you.
What they would do then ultimately, if they do waive him and put him down there, all you've done is shifted Jones for Samsonov. Really?
Yeah. Well, and I'm presuming he won't get claimed. I'd be very surprised. But there's a lot of teams that are struggling for goaltending right now. Like,
you're right.
There is a gamble. Like, there is the possibility someone's like, we get him out of that fishbowl. Maybe we get him down here. Maybe we find something.
You're right, because what if New Jersey puts their hands up and said, we're tired of taking a look at that? Carolina puts their hands up, where Freddie Anderson is not guaranteed to come back because of the blood clots. Like,
now you got $3-something million, right? You got $3-something million, and you try and go out and get a goaltender for cheaper that maybe helps you, but you got to spend an asset. That's the issue.
But here's the other thing, guys, and we'll get into, I think we got to go, but the goalie market, who's available? Like, Calgary has 3, and Wolf doesn't need waivers, so he can go down. Markstrom got a shutout last night, and he's got 2 years left at $6 million. And he's a clear-cut starting goaltender. If Calgary decides they're going to rebuild, maybe he's a guy who's in play. If not, it's Dan Vladar. Okay, is Dan Vladar got enough games under his belt for you to put your hand up and go, that's the guy that we're going to try and go deep into the playoffs with? These are the types of stuff. Jake Allen, 35 years old. this is what we're talking about. Maybe John Gibson in Anaheim, but you're going to have to pay to get him out, and he's got years left on his contract. And I don't know.
The answer is Joseph Wall is the answer. The answer is Joseph Wall or Samsonov finds it, which can happen. Like, it's not like his career's over. Right. He's just in a very dark place right now. But you got to work with him. He's got to be honest with himself. The team's got to be honest with him. You got to work with him, and you got to hope something clicks. He's talented. He's been on runs before. He was very good last year. So if the answer is Joseph Wall needs to be very good when he returns. It's asking a lot, and or Samsonov needs to click again, because I think I think you just answered your own question. This is what you've got. Like, this is what it's going to be. Maybe you pluck a guy here or there, maybe a PTO here or there. But if there was someone available, they would have been traded by now, right? Other teams would have stepped in, and it hasn't happened. It's not like guys are going to come available because the Leafs are calling. That's not going to happen.
Agreed.
All right, Marty Baron will join us. He was in the building last night. He'll join us in about a half an hour. Again, we got big games in the NFL this weekend. We had a big signing in baseball last night. We'll get into that. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. Mail-in Fridays brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. From touchdowns to tie bites and puck drops to pizza, BP's elite lineup of apps, wings, and ice-cold beers. Always dialed in for game time. Hustle into your local BP tonight.
What are you doing with your salad there, Noodles?
I put my headset back on, and like it got caught in my hair, and it was like standing up behind. I rushed back because, I'll be honest, the Boston Pizza got delivered, so I was so fired up. I ran up and grabbed it and brought down a plate for myself, a little Great White North, or the one that I've designed right here.
You personally designed it? There you go, from Boston Pizza. Okay. There you go. I didn't realize that you were a pizza
I threw
artist.
my headset on and my hair was on sideways. I'm like, God, I had sauce in my face. I needed to pull it together. But anyways, all good.
I'm in here, and they've already closed the calf. So that's great. I mean, it's just, there's nobody in here.
Well, it's Christmas. It's a ghost town
there. There's nobody in here. I can't blame them. It was, when you give the loud open when you know it's locked and you're trying to you're praying someone's going to hear you. No one heard me. They're like, that's enough out of you. I'm like, all right, moving on. But anyway, you know what I need Yoshi Yamamoto to hook me up with some cash, because that guy's got it. The Dodgers giving Yamamoto, who's not pitched, he's not thrown one pitch in Major League Baseball, and he just got $325 million, but they got to post 50, so it's basically a $375 million contract for a guy that has not pitched. He has not put on a uniform, and that doesn't mean that the scouting report isn't there. He's a stud. They all know what they think they're getting. He's 25, I believe. But what I was thinking last night? I was getting Kawhi flashbacks, because Kawhi, was using Toronto, and the plane was coming up. And meanwhile, in the background, it was like, let's make sure we find a way to get Paul George to the Clippers, and I'm going to sign. And I have to believe the whole Ohtani thing, like the deferral of money, that was just for Yamamoto. That was basically like, we're a package deal. We're coming, and I'm going to come here, and I want this guy to come with me, and we're going to make it work. So what is taking so long is we have to work out how this is going to look in the end. But now the Dodgers land Ohtani, they land Yamamoto.
Yeah.
And I feel for Angels fans, because I noticed last night Ohtani was at the Rams game, and it's this introduction to the market that continues. The guy was playing for the Angels for 6 years.
20 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
It's completely bizarre. I was just going to say that. It's bizarre that this guy has been in L.A. He knows the market.
Yeah.
And they're introducing him at other sporting events. The other thing that's become clear here, and there's people that are upset that the Dodgers are getting these free agents and they're spending all this money. Is it good for baseball? The Dodgers have deep pockets. They're willing to spend all this money. They're also taking on risk. I understand, Hayes, like you said, the scouting report is out. Everyone knows what this guy is. But they got deep pockets because they can handle the risk. They can handle the risk of signing Ohtani to $700 million, knowing that he may never pitch a game again. Or this guy for 12 years, he's 25. They have him till he's 37. this is not new that the Dodgers have money, that the Yankees have money, that big name players want to go to these kinds of teams in baseball. All it means is these teams can handle the risk of spending a lot more money than the other teams and dealing with the fallout if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, they're willing to do it, and you still got to play the games. Like, this doesn't mean they're going to win 12 World Series now because Yamamoto's on the team.
That's what kind of worries me is, like, not that he shows up and he's a gas can, but how did it work out for the Clippers?
Not so well, exactly.
Not so well, right? Like, when you look at it, just because your team's rich and you can figure that out financially doesn't guarantee anything. Now, Ohtani is, he's a risk, and I know, but hey, I would have loved him as a Blue Jay.
Of course.
Not going to, that goes without saying, but there's no guarantee that he's going to nail it out of the park for 7-8 years straight. And
exactly.
There's been injury issues, and with the other guy, Yamamoto, who knows? He might get to the majors, and it might take him a year or two to settle in. Who knows? Like,
and they're paying him. They're paying him like he's got the biggest contract in pitching history. Which is, again, I just love to be a fly on the wall. If you're Garrett Cole, if you're DeGrom, if you're Scherzer, if you're Verlander, like super. And those guys have all made a fortune. But it's like, wait a minute. Like, we've won Cy Young's, World Series. We're over here crushing it, man, every single year, grinding. And this guy comes out of nowhere and blows past all of us for the biggest contract in history.
You know who that was, though? Eric Lindros. Do you remember Eric Lindros signed for $3 million, and Brett Hull and those guys were making. Hull had scored 86. It was like Gretzky was like that's kind of. Now, Lindros had this buzz about him and obviously delivered, but I remember that conundrum because, like, Lindros just busted everything wide open financially, and the top players in the NHL were like, hold on a second, if that kid's getting that, I need this type of thing. So you wonder if that'll have a ripple effect through Major League Baseball.
It is a good question. I mean, now I guess the money has effectively been spent this offseason, like in terms of, and that doesn't mean there aren't free agents out there. Of course they are, but there's no one that is worthy of that kind of ticket, right? Like, who is the next arm that comes up that's like, well, if he got it, that's the bar now. I'm looking at I'm looking at a 12-year deal at $370 million, $380.
Especially at 25 years old, Hayes.
That's
right.
What
like
makes
the guys
unique.
that you mentioned, their best days have already come and gone.
Yeah,
they already are legends for the performances that they've put on.
Yes, I guess you're looking at a guy where pitchers come up later, team control. They're probably not going to hit free agency until they're 27, 28.
Could have been Manoah.
It could have been
his act again.
I mean, Alec was on, like, he's still under team control for a long time. But if in 4 years or whatever, whenever his deal is expired here or team control expires, that's the kind of thing where you'd say that guy's in his prime and is worthy of that kind of money. But everyone is debating: is it good for baseball, bad for baseball? I think it sucks if you're if you're a fan in the division, if you're a fan in the NL, if you're a team that was seeking the services of Yamamoto or Ohtani, and obviously the Jays were on the wrong side of Ohtani, by all accounts they were in the conversation with Yamamoto. They were never going to sign him. Clearly they weren't going to give him that kind of money. But I have a bigger beef with the likes of the Oakland A's than I do the LA Dodgers, right? The Dodgers, everyone, you can pay it. They get in there, they pay it. They got a great history. It's an incredible park. It's a great city, clearly. Like, they win. They consistently aim to win. You got a gripe in baseball, go talk to the Oakland Athletics. That's your issue.
Talk to the
that's
Pirates,
the embarrassment.
Hayes.
The
Talk
Pirates
to those teams. That rely on all the other rich owners to keep them afloat and keep them in business because they don't want to spend money. Like, I don't know. If you're a star player, like, why would you want to go somewhere where the house is not packed? There's not a lot of history and tradition. And to be honest with you, I kind of agree with the people that say that the star players going to the big markets and the marquee teams is good for baseball, because it is. Because we're going to see those guys. Like, we're going to see them on mainstream national games. And why do you want those guys to be buried with a team playing on a local regional broadcast?
What do you think Mike Trout feels like? Like, can you imagine him watching Ohtani yesterday, like you said, being introduced to the market? Yeah. It's like the guy probably hasn't left his house. Ohtani's probably living in the exact same house, just going a different route.
And now he's a Dodger. Now. You're right. Yeah. It is the definition of the difference between brands and the brand appeal that comes with the Dodgers compared to the Angels, where Ohtani's at the Rams game and he's walking around, he's getting the jersey, and everyone's like, hey, there's the L.A. Dodgers guy. Meanwhile, Mike Trout, is getting invited to like a community college like lacrosse event, and
he's doing the Tommy DeVito Pizzeria sign.
Yeah, we can try to squeeze you in. There's a high school game if you want to come out. I don't know, Mike.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's just it's a totally different beast. And listen, the Dodgers deserve that reputation. The Dodgers obviously are the big fish out there. It's like the Lakers, like the Yankees. But
how did the Mets spending all that money last winter? How did that work out for them?
Got nowhere for them. Exactly. It blew up in their face. They spent all that money. They were fully invested, and the wheels fell off. I think there's more of an insulation there for the Dodgers. I think they're a better team. They have more of a history of winning, clearly. But you're right. The Mets, it didn't take them long before they're like, okay, Verlander's got to go. Scherzer's got to go.
Different scenario, but it imploded. And all I'm trying to say is like, having all that money and spending all that money, that's great. It doesn't guarantee anything. All it means is you're willing to take on more risk than other teams.
Yep. And that's what the Dodgers are willing to do. And I credit them for it. Like, it sucks if, again, you're a team that was hoping that those guys would come to your team. They didn't. Dodgers put up, and they landed both guys. So shout out to the Dodgers and Yamamoto and Shohei Ohtani.
And no one's feeling bad for the Yankees.
Well, that's another part of it. Like, it was either the Dodgers or like the Yankees or the Mets. But it is a shift. Like, it was not long ago where everything was Yankees, 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 or Red Sox, Red Sox. Like, the Sox were not even in on these guys. Like, they were not even mentioned at any point. Like, the mighty have fallen in Boston. Yeah. They don't even appear to be a serious player. The Cubs come up every once in a while. No one was going there. So, again, if you're a Blue Jay fan and you're trying to put it through the lens of that, yes, you're not the Dodgers, but there's a lot of teams striking out right now. Like, a lot of teams are still in a position where they got to do a lot of work this offseason. Blue Jays are no different. Every day this week, we've been announcing a current or former Maple Leaf player for our Maple Leaf lineup, and we're giving away a pair of tickets to see the Leafs take on the Ottawa Senators December 27th. What a gift. Also throwing in a $250 Vanilla Visa prepaid card with each pair of tickets to make it the ultimate game night. Vanilla Visa prepaid cards are available for purchase at Petro-Canada. Your final player of the week and the player of the day is Dion Phaneuf. Dion Phaneuf, 416-870-1050. 416-870-1050. Dion Phaneuf is your Maple Leaf player of the day. All 5 players have been announced. Call in now, 416-870-1050. Al's brother, with his tremendous information, is waiting patiently. 416-870-1050. Marty Baron coming up. Al's brother will be back in studio around 6:30. Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel, still to come as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, our Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. Rams coming off a big win last night, a big cover last night. Rams are looking good. We've got games tomorrow, games Sunday, games Monday, World Juniors on Tuesday.
So much sports.
Yes.
There we go.
What a time of year, man. I love it.
Did you guys lay eyes on the Florida Panthers' new practice facility today and what was going on out there?
No.
So they opened a new facility right in the heart of Fort Lauderdale, but the players all live close by, and I'm sure, Noodles, you must know the area very well. They were showing up to the rink in their golf carts and their scooters instead of their vehicles. Wow. What do you think of that?
That is a baller move.
You know what? When I was down there, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to one of the guys, and they said, yeah, our new practice rink is going to be right around the corner. And I didn't even put 2 and 2 together. And now Joe from the Bridge is showing it on the screen. That's unbelievable. Because when I played for the Panthers, I lived in Fort Lauderdale, right off Los Olas.
Yeah.
So that's like prime real estate. You want to be there.
Well, how's that for the free agent pitch? By the way, you can take your golf cart to practice now.
Yeah, well, it's another one of those scenarios, like we were just saying, you still got to play the games. It would assume, for the longest time, it was like, why isn't Florida a good team? Like, what is going against them? It's the market, the weather, the state tax, everything. And yet they've been awful forever up until last year and this year. Like, there was a long time where they could not figure it out. And you're right, it should factor into the pitch. You would think they got a good team. That should factor in as well.
Well, yeah.
But I don't know why it hasn't worked for so long.
Well, instead of being on the Gardner and having a guy with an F-150 right up your rear end flashing the high beams at you to get out of the way when you're trying to get off at Kipling, these guys are taking the Del Boca Vista Express with their golf carts over to the practice rink.
Yeah. Is it called the new War Memorial Facility, too? That's what I'm reading.
I don't know. It's news to me. I wasn't tracking Florida's practice facility. Please,
I just saw it
Please
today.
Forgive me.
And it was one of those things where you're like, I could have got into going to practice in a golf cart or a scooter every day.
See, my thing, I look at it the opposite way. It's like, how do you get motivated to play or do anything?
It was fun, though.
I hear you. It's fun, exactly. But I like when I think Florida in shorts and t-shirt, I'm like, I don't want to go to a rink. Like, I don't know. I mean, obviously it works for the guys down there.
I'll send you guys a picture of the 1975 Cadillac Eldorado.
Oh, I've seen it.
That I had.
Yeah, that'd be a good life. I hear you.
And
down there,
life.
you can get driverless cabs, probably the whole nine.
Oh, you have it all.
You can have everything you want. Anything your heart desires down there. All right, final hour coming up. Marty Baron will join us. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.